Oh, I'm Wendy Dietzler, Director of Events and Education for Trade Press Media Group. I want to thank you all for joining today's webcast, Filtered Drinking Water Reimagined, How the Next Generation of Bottle Filling Stations Simplifies Maintenance. Before we get started with today's event, let's go over a few housekeeping details. Today's webcast will be archived at facilitiesnet.com/webcasts. Our presenter today is Michael Heitoff, Associate Project Manager for Drinking Water at Elkay. Michael has 5 years' experience in Zurn Elkay's Drinking Water division, and he leads new product development initiatives to help drive innovation to the market. And with that, I'll pass it over to Michael.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to be in front of you today. Hope your year's off to a great start. Today we're going to be talking about drinking water reimagined in terms of filtration. I know reimagined is quite the buzzword in terms of drinking water. Most of it's pretty straightforward. I think all of us have our preferences when it comes to drinking water, but we're thinking about the next generation day in and day out here at Elkay. So excited to introduce some new innovations that we're working on. But again, reimagined is, a buzzword. We think about, reimagining the color of our house. Are we going to repaint it? Reimagining our work-life balance. Do we want to, consider a new career? But in terms of reimagining filtered drinking water, I think one thing remains constant, and that is filtration. So really what we're trying to do is make filtered drinking water easier to do business and, simplifying the maintenance aspect and everything that, goes around it. So it's really exciting to see a lot of push to combat the problems that we see out there. It is a complex arena. There's a lot of different shapes and sizes of problems out there to combat with, and we're just trying to make it easier to supply drinking water to the consumers like you and me out there. So today, the objectives are to review how drinking water solutions have evolved and preview the latest technology that we have to offer. And that goes hand in hand with, why filtration matters. I think that's the root problem. But knowing change is coming, we want to make sure that everyone has the right solutions in their tool belt to make sure they can combat those problems. And then we're also going to look into the latest innovations to improve maintaining filtered water. So see how connected technology can help anticipate facilities' needs and automate maintenance. Learn how the latest bottle fillers will simplify installation, reduce maintenance time required for your teams, and understand, in addition to that, the negative effects of drinking water pollution, such as PFAS, and the latest filtration available to combat these. So quite a reduced agenda, but a lot to cover. The first thing to go through is why filtration matters. Is that a question? I'm guessing a lot of people may ask, what's in my water? That's usually what we get questions about, how they go about combating that. And that it comes down to a few key contaminants that we're looking at today that may find their way into your water, such as microplastics, PFAS, and lead. Those are the big ones we're going to talk about today. But there's also some other, microorganisms that sneak into your water that our immune systems are able to combat. But for the top row of contaminants, those are the ones that start to build up in your body, have a negative effect on adolescent development and just, long-term health. And we're looking to, reduce that out of your water so everyone has a clean drink of water. So microplastics, that's probably the biggest one that, the circle of life has given us, a negative connotation around. You may ask, where do single plastic bottles go? I have a stat here. 8 million metric tons of plastic leak into the ocean per year. That's the equivalent of dumping over 10,000 single-use plastic bottles in the ocean every second. So, our bottle fillers, if you're familiar with them, they have a bottle counter to count how many bottles have been saved from the landfill. And, that's something we're looking to carry on, but it doesn't do justice to know, how much around that is, making its way into the landfill and leaching into our water supply. So that's one contaminant we're focused on to reduce in the future. PFAS, PFOA, and PFOS, the two largest, family items of that PFAS family. Those are a big one that have evolved over some time and have been around for many, many years, similar to lead. And more solutions are coming out, more legislation and regulation will be combating that family. And it's, as one gets dropped off or one gets filtered out, another one pops up. So, we're always on our toes trying to figure out what's the next big contaminant. And that's probably the biggest one thus far that, our entire country is trying to combat, but it's going to take billions and billions of dollars to filter out that water at the source. So at the point of use, it's almost mandatory to get that out of the water to protect the end user from the harm it can cause. And then lead, most people are familiar with lead by now, and that's something that has been improved upon over years. There's, infrastructure bills that have improved the way water is supplied. Most times or not, public water supplies are removing lead from the water. So it's only in the distribution from that public water supply to the point of use where that is a significant problem. And there's, again, not enough time and resources to combat those contaminants similar to the other ones I mentioned. So, back to microplastics, plastics take hundreds of years to degrade, and then they end up as microplastics. So all the plastic forks, knives, plates, what have you, that make its way into the landfill leach into the water supply. And that's a problem. So we have filters today that we'll be talking about that can remove that from your water, same with PFOA and PFOS and lead. So lead, there's no safe levels of lead. 47 million children are exposed to this problem. That's 1 in 2 children that are, have lead levels in their blood. And I think that probably goes the same with adults as well. But children are, in their growing phases, and they're absorbing much more lead than the standard adult. So the filters that we provide basically equate to $1 per student per year. And that will, protect students, kids, and everything from that exposure that, is irreversible at the end of the day. So, it's something to be said that we can just, wait another year to implement safe programs around drinking water, but 1 year is, too late. So, the time is now to act on lead, and states are starting to do that with new legislation that's coming out, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then PFAS is the next lead, also known as forever chemicals. This is one where, it provided a benefit early on in terms of PFAS, providing all these great innovations like non-stick cookware, water repellent clothing, stain resistant carpet, and so on and so forth, but it won't break down. Most times or not, it ends up being dumped into the wastewater, and the filtration plant, the public water supply, is not pulling that water out, or that contaminant out of the water. So those prevalent chemicals are actually making its way to the drinking water one way or another. And it doesn't always have to happen that way. It ends up in the landfill and it seeps into the ground. That's another way, or it ends up getting sucked up into the air. There's actually a data point out there that states PFAS has been found on the North Pole, Antarctica, and Mount Everest. So you're looking at that map there of the United States, and it shows kind of all the contaminant, hot zones. But more times than not, 99% of our water supply, or folks out there that drink water, which is most of us, have this present in their body. So there's a major risk, not just for, kids, but for all. And that has similar health impacts just as much as lead does. So, change is coming. We're trying to make it happen one filter at a time. And we understand that, it's troubling. It's not the easiest, battle at the end of the day for folks to install drinking water products that filter the water, and it's a costly endeavor. So we're making it as easy to maintain, easy to implement as possible. And it's really built around legislation that's growing around drinking water, and it continues to grow. Policies are coming up everywhere, Michigan being the main focal point where they created the gold standard, which we'll touch on here. But more and more states are taking aggressive action in mandating schools to provide safe and clean drinking water. So the Michigan gold standard is called Filtered First. That's a big one that was signed into law October 2023. So we'll talk about that one in more detail. But there's other states like Colorado, California, Texas, Maryland, and Kansas, among others, that either require filtration in their schools or require significant testing of their water supply to ensure that every outlet of drinking water is protected. So to speak to Michigan as the gold standard legislation called Filtered First, this applies to every K through 12 school and daycare facility in the state. Per code, one bottle filler per 100 occupants must be installed in the building. Every potable water source must be filtered. So by October of this year, roughly, all Michigan schools and daycare facilities must have a filtered solution or must indicate there's, this outlet is not for consumption, or they decommission the outlet if it's not filtered. You may ask how in the heck are they, going to keep up with this? It's a very costly endeavor. So filters must be changed on a regular basis, but Michigan is helping with the initial startup of these for $100 million to get them in compliance, and then an additional $5 million annually for filter replacements and testing of water. So that's the most important thing. While it's a positive step, there still needs to be proactiveness, having a, drinking water management plan, but it all again starts with the product and ensuring that it is in compliance. And this is likely going to be the gold standard for many states to come. So as far as a filter bottle filler goes, the filter must meet an NSF and ANSI standard 53 for lead reduction, and NSF ANSI standard 42 for particulate removal. The flow rate through the station is paired with the specified flow rate of the filter, and there is a light or other device to indicate filter cartridge replacement status. Those are the key three things that every school has to comply with. And at the end of the day, it isn't exactly what folks want to do, but it's protecting the youth and the generations to come. So it's a good step in the right direction, and it seems like it's the right positive step ahead for other states to follow. So, in addition to legislation, advocacy is on the rise and cannot be ignored. There's, scorecards out there grading each one of these states on how well they're doing in regards to this. So previously, Michigan was a D- among others that, didn't have any, process in place or management plan in place to, keep drinking water safe for children. So, it's coming slowly but surely as more data comes out as far as how bad it really is. So, the social aspect, the demand for cleaner water is growing as well. You'll see social media blowing up about, drinking water solutions for the good or the bad. There's a lot of solutions out there that it's not easy to connect a filter to. They just may not have the plumbing set up, good plumbing system set up, or electrical isn't easily accessible. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for folks out there to implement these programs. And, Michigan was the starting point, and it seems to go pretty well. But again, it's just, a lot for a school that hasn't necessarily done this in the past. So that's where it comes down to our innovative solutions, trying to make it as easy to install, whether we're talking in a home, a school, or an airport, for instance, a filtered drinking water, because at the end of the day, it's hopefully going that direction where everything is filtered, you won't have to question whether there's lead or microplastics or PFAS in my water. It's more of just the afterthought that, hey, man, it used to be pretty bad back in the day. We're drinking out of the water hose, and hell, we didn't know what was in our water. But now more consumers are buying into the fact of clean, safe drinking water. So I think that, comes back to facilities to answer to them with something or just, a better process around that. So profiltration is the next generation of clean drinking water for Elkay, improving the maintenance of filtered drinking water for the most part, as well as providing extra benefits and more contaminant reduction. So without further ado, here is the profiltration bottle filler. And to go around the clock, it all starts with effortless maintenance. The top mounted filter, which we'll look at, enables instant access. So instead of the previous systems we still sell, the filter is actually installed on the top instead of the bottom, and also has double the capacity of most filters out there with 10,000 gallon lead reduction, which in turn eliminates the amount of times you have to go in and change the filter. And in addition to that, Smart Connected, which we'll speak to, is another standard feature now on this profiltration unit. And we have other ways, other connected options within our portfolio. But this is standard, makes it super easy to keep track of the filter statuses and the water usage within that ecosystem. Next, we have superior water quality. I kind of drove that one in to the ground with, advanced filtration that removes lead, PFAS, and microplastics. And then additionally, we have a UV module that can also remove bacteria. So we'll speak to that a bit more. And then profiltration also is an improved design. So that tower you're looking at above the bubbler cooler area is all metal, providing that, aesthetic upgrade, but also that performance reliability that aligns with our brand. We're always looking to gain customer trust and provide a reliable unit that is easy to maintain and doesn't require much wrench time. So all in all, this is a great solution for the filtered movement that's coming out slowly but surely in new states. And we're looking forward to, getting this out and installed in the field. But this is the fastest filter change on the market, in 30 seconds or less, actually changing the filter. So there's actually a video that's out there that just came out on profiltration, which we will share in the chat if you want to take a look at it after this. It's pretty savvy, looks really cool. But essentially, it's all you have to do is, while you're standing there, take 2 screws out of the top and the access door will pull forward. Next, you have to turn off the water supply, and then there's a power switch at the top of the tower, making it easy to now get into the unit and not have to get on the ground and, shut off the actual water supply that's connected to the unit or unplug the unit. We have a switch and auto shut off at the top that'll take care of that in one way. And then you go ahead and turn the filter out, quarter turn counterclockwise, and then you insert the new filter. From there, turn on the electric, turn on the water, and you're good to go. You close that door, and it actually initiates an automatic filter reset and auto flush sequence, which will purge the water from the filter. That's a manufacturer requirement. With most filters out there, removing about a gallon of the impurities that live within the filter, and then you're off and running for 10,000 gallons of lead reduction. So it's a real quick way to get to the filter, and you're not having to do it as much with our 10,000 gallon filter. But here's a couple other options that we offer. So we have the FL10, which is the 10,000 gallon, removes standard lead and microplastics. That's our standard offering for this solution. The FL6 is another option in case the traffic isn't necessarily up to par with a 10,000 gallon. You can always reduce that, saving a couple bucks for the replacement filter. And then we offer a couple different solutions out of the factory in addition to just lead. We have the FLP4, which is total PFAS, which is different from our previous enhanced filtration solutions, in addition to lead. So you get 4,000 gallons of PFAS, lead, and microplastics. And then also we have a sediment reduction filter, which offers two-stage filtration when you're pairing the sediment and the lead reduction filter, or PFAS and lead reduction filter, whichever you prefer. Obviously, I think based on the conversation we're having, you're learning PFAS is pretty prevalent. And if you can get PFAS out and lead, it's probably the filter that should be default. But that comes back to what's your situation look like? Are your public water supplies, removing that from your water supply? So I guess it goes back to doing a little research. And if you're a consumer that's worried, there's always the consumer confidence reports that live out there to know what your public systems are filtering out. But we have a wide array of filter solutions here at a industry high capacity, which is pretty exciting, reducing the amount of upkeep and the wrench time for each one of your systems. So here's a lineup of the filters and the certified contaminants of the reduction contaminants. So we got lead, total PFAS, microplastics, and then a couple other ones that are new: anti-scalant, asbestos, and turbidity. Those are a couple more that are exclusive to the Pro Filtration line. In addition to that, you need to make sure, and this comes standard on all of our filters, but the filters are certified by these reduction claims. And some, the certification language matters. So to ensure a filter is of the highest quality and safe to use, you must verify it has been certified for specific reduction claims that were mentioned here. So the NSF ANSI 42, and 53, 401, and 372. Those are, the key ones within our systems. But you have the Water Quality Association, you have the NSF International, and IAPMO R&T organizations. Those are three honorable parties that will certify those filters. And the language that we use matters. So for instance, complying with the certification or meeting standards is not the same as certified. So for instance, the wrong statement out there that you may see, and it's overwhelming if you go on Amazon and look for a filter, there's a lot of different options out there. So you need to make sure that the filter complies with NSF standards it's certified. So the wrong statement would be filter complies with NSF standard for reduction of PFOA and PFOS. That word complies does not mean it's certified. They may do their own internal testing, but at the end of the day, who are you going to trust, a third party or, some company out there that's just trying to make an extra buck? So that's super important to consider and make sure that the language specifies certified to reduce to some extent. Switching over to connected, this is a very exciting option for facilities managers out there, and new construction, kind of putting together a suite of systems that speak to each other. A centralized water system that you can control and manage your fleet of drinking water stations, including even Zurn Elkay faucet valves, flush valves, and interceptors across your buildings with one easy to use dashboard. So this is, isn't anything new, but in bottle filling it is. It's only been out a couple of years now. And it allows you to remotely access your system. You can proactively maintain them, knowing where your filter status lights are sitting and when you need to plan to replace those filters. And it's a great sustainability tool as well if you're interested in, tallying up how many bottles saved you have used, or even considering how much water has been used. All of that is available inside that system. So speaking to bottle fillers a bit more, here's kind of a dashboard that shows you the PlumbSmart capabilities. So You can track the filter status and anticipate the maintenance. On this Pro unit, you actually will get predictive analytics, knowing kind of when that filter is expected to change based on usage. In addition to that, the remote flush option is also available to schedule and document flushing events for compliance and safety. So we have one of our customers, Chicago Public Schools, is actually, doing everything they can to reduce lead out of their systems, and they even, manually flush their units across the campus. So this is one system that they were interested in to, make it easier and save a lot of time and money from their engineers having to go touch every single unit before the kids even got to school that day. And then in addition, the sustainability metrics to see, exactly what's going on across your fleet of units. So here's a dashboard just of one bottle filling station. You can get the filter status and bottles saved count right from one dashboard, and then even look through charts of data based on time or usage, as well as replacement parts, which make it easy one-stop shop for replacement parts that you may need for repairs, and then some more details and parameters that could be set. So it's a unique option, which is standard on Pro, that, allows you to really connect with units and avoid those, reactive scenarios where, a filter may be on red, meaning the filter's expired. And, you get a call from a teacher or a student saying, hey, my drinking water fountain outside my classroom needs, attention. And then there's just downtime and you have to drop everything for that one scenario. So this allows you to, progressively get ahead of these, this maintenance that's going to occur with filtration and drinking water. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a unit that you can trust. The one you don't have to maintain, or the easiest unit you don't have to maintain, is the one you don't have to, right? So it's an all metal construction, eliminating that wear and tear that you see on other systems with like a plastic alcove. So the stainless steel alcove will, hold up against the test of time, and you have a 5-year warranty to back it up. So at the end of the day, it's a great solution to, get ahead of the legislation, and it meets all the requirements from a filtration standpoint. So just to highlight here, we're not going to get into all the other filter solutions that Elkay has, but a couple different ones that are available to you are the enhanced filtration category and the pro filtration category. In fact, the quick filter change that launched a couple years back actually got some recognition from FacilitiesNet and the Reader's Choice Award in 2023. And it was in the restroom fixtures, consumables, and plumbing category. And that actually created a 60-second filter change. So that was the standard, give it 12 months ago, where we had a 6,000-gallon filter and a quick filter change, but the filter was installed in the lower portion of the system. And now we kind of moved everything to the top, long-lasting filtration, sediment, dual filtration that will protect the life of the system, and the contaminant filter on top of that. And then just the elevated aesthetics, and the slimmer profile at the top just provides a unique value, from an aesthetic and filtration point of view. And then the added protection, connected UV optional package, which reduces Legionella in those unique circumstances. So there's two options here. The Pro filtration unit is coming soon in 2025, which will come with a couple different options out of the factory. Like I mentioned, you'll have a PFAS filter out of the factory, or an ultra capacity 10,000-gallon filter, or you can choose to reduce your intake to 6,000, or add a PFAS, or a sediment filter in addition to lead. So depending on your filter needs, it's one of those areas where you can always have options. And if anything, if you're looking for more information today after the call, on Elkay.com, we now have a landing page for Pro Filtration. So if you want to pull some specifications, or you're looking to integrate this Pro solution into another job that you're working on, there's that information you need out there to help you along the way. And then we do have videos and such to speak to those value propositions that Pro Filtration provides. So we're really excited about launching this in July. And, we use that buzzword reimagined, but it's really just doing the right thing in filtration and making it easier on facilities managers at the end of the day, not having to, drop everything for filtration, kind of making it a seamless operation at the end of the day and making sure there's clean, safe drinking water coming to, schools, children, and that sort of thing. So that does it for the majority of the content. Happy to take in any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And I think if the audience wouldn't mind, we would like to conduct a brief poll. After taking in some of this information, we'd like to know a little bit more about what you think. So just take a look at your screen. We've got a poll that's going to be coming up shortly, and a couple options for you to consider. We want to know, what is the most challenging aspect of installing or managing filtered drinking water systems for you and your customers today? You've got 5 options here. One is cost of ownership. One is ease of maintenance, access to funding, customer buy-in, or maybe your customers do not need point of use filtration. So take a look at those options, and if you wouldn't mind selecting accordingly, we'll have that poll up. And we'll go through a question or two, Michael, if you don't mind, to give our audience a little time to respond. And then we can come back and take a look at those results, if that sounds good.
That sounds great, Wendy.
Great. All right. I'm very interested in this. I've got 2 kids in school myself, and water consumption for them is on the uptick. And I'm very happy about that. So this kind of product really is just very reassuring from a parental point of view. But I'm wondering about in schools how that new Pro Filtration unit holds up in terms of vandal resistance or rough and tumble or somebody slamming into it. Anything that you can give us there on that design?
Yeah, I can definitely just imagine the kids in middle schools during the day kind of going after our units. And it's funny, most vandal resistant solutions we have are either fitted most suitable for middle schools or prisons. So it's kind of hard to believe there's an in-between there, but I guess right. some of the behaviors go hand in hand, and that's what we're looking to make sure of with our systems going forward. So the Pro, like I mentioned, is an all metal construction at the top. So we're trying to avoid, damages and, repairs along the way. And that's something we've observed in other systems. If they're not vandal resistant, they likely get beat up pretty good. So that's an area where we're looking to improve upon, and Pro Filtration's the next best option. It's not positioned for like prisons. We have other options available, like our vandal resistant family that lives out there. So there are filter solutions that live out there, not to this level quite yet. But as far as a durable and reliable unit goes, the tower of the Pro Filtration unit will stand up against the test of time with an all metal stainless steel construction. So the powder coating on the outside also eliminates damage and protects against those scratches and, bumps and bruises along the way. So, the Pro unit will kind of cover some of those scenarios.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And it looks like we've got some data from our audience today. So thanks everybody for supplying your responses. I think we can see them on the screen here. And it looks like a fairly even split. Well, first of all, no one said that they don't have a need for that point of use filtration.
I'm actually glad no one poked a hole in that one.
Right. Thanks, everybody. But customer buy-in is something, but really those big ticket items are, I think, probably not too surprising. Access to funding, ease of maintenance, cost of ownership. So the expense through the pockets, but also through the staff and the staffing needed on the maintenance side. Well, thanks everybody for that. And I also want to thank everybody for getting questions in. It looks like we've got a couple or more than a few. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right in, Michael, and we're going to start with a question from Brian. He wants to know, does the Pro fit in the same footprint as a standard bottle filler?
Yes, so actually, if we jump up a few slides here,
Sure.
the enhanced Elkay filter bottle filler is generally the same mold as a lot of our other systems. And you can kind of tell the similarities on the bottom half. The only difference with the Pro Tower is it's roughly 7 inches, 8 inches taller for that filtration system area. So you're looking at a little more space being used up on the top, but the rest of the rough end will remain the same. So you can actually take that unit on the left, that enhanced bottle filler, off the wall and replace it, swap it right in for a Pro without having to remove anything from the wall. So the bracket remains the same that holds the unit on the wall, and then the plumbing, rough in, and electrical will work as well.
Okay.
Good question.
Well, it is, and it certainly speaks to some of those data points we were just looking at in the survey, when it costs on the maintenance side and all of that. Wonderful. Brian wants to know, can the filter housing be purchased separately and plumbed into a standard bottle filling station, or are they exclusive to that Pro setup?
Currently, we kind of identify Pro as a standing filter change or a top loaded filter change. We're looking to expand on that, but right now it's the only option. If you were to install a Pro filter and you wanted a sediment reduction included in that, that would be retrofittable today. But as of right now, that horizontal, layout of the Pro is unique to this system right now.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Michael. James has a question about the remote flushes. He says they're not just for bottle fillers. Is that correct? He saw some snippets for faucets. Wonders if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
That is a great question. I know for a fact bottle fillers have a remote flush capability, and that goes the same in some of our other products that dispense water. So you'll have to look at our suite of sensor faucets that have the same capabilities.
Okay.
It all goes back to how it's set up. So you must have one gateway that connects all the systems to one and then feeds that data back to PlumSmart. So if you do have a connected ecosystem, you have those same capabilities with some of our other systems as well. So if you're looking to get some water flow, yes, they will work on other systems.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Alan wants to know, how do you determine when it's appropriate to change the filter out? Time-based, flow-based, use-based? What's the parameter that you have there?
Great question. So for all of our filters, even on the enhanced side, you can see, and I'm glad he asked that question, the systems use 2 different filter systems. So the Water Sentry filters only work on our legacy, our enhanced bottle fillers, while the Pro units all use a different Pro filter. So putting that aside, all the filters work based on time and capacity, except our sediment filter. So in the case where you may have a sediment and a lead 2-stage system in the Pro unit, the only tracking mechanism is for the contaminant filter. There's an electronic chip inside the filter that will read that time and capacity based on flow. Mm-hmm. And so whatever comes first, that capacity of 10,000 gallons or the time of which is 12 months for all of our filters. So no matter what, you're replacing it every 12 months or whatever comes first. So in the case where you may have an optional stage 1 sediment filter, that will be that will be changed out based on the situation. So if flow were to diminish over time, that's an indication that you have a sediment buildup in that filter and it's becoming less effective. So that would be one scenario where the indicator light is not telling you to change the filter. The indicator light is really only telling you when to change the contaminant filter, which generally is the most important. So in any case, the time aspect is still tracked to both. So after 12 months, you should be replacing both filters no matter what. And it's kind of one of those things with the higher capacity contamination reduction. You most likely, if you have the right, gallon reduction, you won't have to change either one more than once a year. That's the hope. But in any case, if the flow diminishes, you may have to replace that sediment filter, even though
Mm-hmm.
the status is still good.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you for that clarification. It's really helpful. We do have, I'm keeping an eye on time. We have a few more minutes. If you do have questions, get them in now. A couple more are here. One of them is about the cost comparison. I think you can speak to us, Michael, about a tool to compare cost to what people might currently have in their facilities versus what we've gone over today.
Yeah, so a big thing we run into is, how we try to sell someone to convert from bottled water to a standard plumbed in system. That's usually the challenge because it's, it makes more sense. It's just the way we've been doing things. We lug around bottles of water and supply our classrooms or what have you with, X amount of bottles per day. But if you're interested in the cost of ownership aspect of things, and I know that was a big, metric out of that poll, we do have a sustainability calculator and cost of ownership calculator. So what it does is provide details around the savings that you may incur by switching over from a bottled water solution, for instance, to a drinking water system. So the first step is let's determine what industry you're in. The second one is what solutions you're looking for. Is it a restroom fixture or a filter bottle filler? And then what's your current situation looking like? Do you have supplied bottled water? Do you have a water jug delivery service? Or do you have no filtration or bottle fillers? And what will happen is it'll spit out based on like the number of buildings, occupants, and that sort of thing, how many bottle fillers you may need. It'll spit out those values. So it's pretty unique. We'll actually send out a link and you can kind of play around with that. And it'll just provide some clarity around how much drinking water from Elkay really costs you. And it's generally a savings. I think you'll kind of be surprised as to, for instance, how many bottles you're saving along the way, as well as just the money and time to go with it.
Great. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Michael, you might have even put that link down in our resources panel. So everybody take a look at that. Yep. I think that link is there, and something I really do recommend. It's a really interesting exercise to go through, and you learn a lot in the process. Questions are still coming in, so let's jump to Alan's. Jumping up to Lewis. Is the new Pro system versatile on a bi-level like some other Elkay models, meaning left high, right low, and vice versa?
Yes, it will be capable of that. Right. If you do have any scenario where it's a unique install, that would be doable. Similar to how our enhanced units work today. You can move the bottle filler to the left or right side, or have a left hand low, right hand high, or vice versa. So It is capable of that. It may take a little workaround, just given how it comes out of the factory, but it is possible. It is possible.
Great. Brian's asking about a power loss or a breaker trip. Does the bottle count reset, or does it stay where it was before the trip?
Everything all goes back to that board that's inside the bottle filler tower there. So in case of any situation, once it powers back up, it'll just reboot that whatever lives on that board that's recorded. But anything in the interim, let's say if you were to use the bottle filler power, I guess, was still functioning to some extent, that would still work even though our unit's fully electrical. So more times than not, you wouldn't be able to use it with the power down, but it will capture all of that data once it's back up online.
Okay, we haven't tripped you yet, Michael, so I'm going to ask another question.
That was a tough one.
That was good. All right. Keith wants to know, how much are PFAS levels expected to be reduced if using a PFOA PFAS filter?
So there's two. So if you look closely on this slide, there's two filters, the 71300C and the FLP4. Both remove lead in addition to PFAS, but they're unique in themselves, where the FLP4 removes total PFAS. And the 71300C, only removes the two leading PFAS contaminants, PFOA and PFOS. Both reduce 20 parts per trillion, but the FLP4 reduces more PFAS families within that main category. So there's, the Gen X, there's other PFOs, PFAs that live within that family that are also reduced down to 20 parts per trillion. So it's, time is evolving. We're learning more about, what contaminants live out within that, arena of contamination. And, once we reduce one, another one pops up. So total PFAS is the top of the line as of today. That's removing a wide array of those PFAS contaminants that currently we cannot remove from the 71300C. So it's a pretty standardized reduction in the certifications that we've received through NSF.
All right, that's great to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have time for one more question, and it is about those smart and connected features you touched on earlier. Can you go back to that and just speak a little
Yes.
more to those pieces?
Yeah, so actually, before I do that, both of these units on the screen here are connectable.
Okay.
So we do offer some factory connected options. So the Pro unit will be standard. The enhanced units are standard if you order the right SKU, which is indicated by a suffix option -W1, which means it's hardwired in our nomenclature speak. But essentially, any unit in the enhanced or Pro family can be connected. So we also have retrofit capabilities. So if you did have an enhanced unit that was built after April 2019, we have a kit. So let's say you have a fairly new building and a fleet of, 100 different enhanced bottle fillers. We do have a solution to get your whole fleet up and running. So it's not a huge, hurdle to climb and get across. But in any case, it is challenging with the older systems that aren't powered and that sort of thing. So it is limited down to just these categories. But at the end of the day, not having to receive calls about red light indicators or filters need to be changed is the biggest one. And another thing that, our systems provide are just a clear cut indication of whether it's, filtered or not. Before, and still today, we have a filter status indicator that's like a stoplight. It's red, yellow, and green. Green being good, red being bad, but yellow is kind of that in-betweener that doesn't make much sense to consumers, doesn't make much sense to facilities folks. So we improve that along the way. So if you didn't have a connected feature, you have all blue LEDs and they just make their way all the way down to red. So it's much easier to be proactive. So for instance, the first blue indicator means you're 100% life. The second means you have 66% life left, and the third is 33%. So you can kind of base that, as you go and, get a feel for how much usage is used bottle filler to bottle filler. But that's the nice thing about connected is you really don't have to guess, and it will give you, predictive dates that you can set up and plan for instead of having to go unit by unit.
All right, that is helpful as well. Thank you. I think we've come to almost the last question. Let's finish here. And then Michael, why don't we wrap up with just any other insights or next steps that you'd want to share? But Rick is asking about the cost of the unit. I'm going to try that again. Cost of the new units compared to current units. Any changes people can expect on the purchasing side?
So for Pro Filtration, it's, the value curve, right? We're going up in filter capacity and a longer life protection. So that means it's going to go up in price just a little bit. We're looking at, like 10 to 20%, depending on the solution. So UV is a little more costly, but the others are very reasonable, and you're actually making it up in price down the road with these filters. So you're changing them less often, and they're not really expensive. So you're only ordering them once a year. So right. The nice thing is you're getting that double capacity for not double the price.
Yep.
Essentially.
Thank you for that clarity. And just so everybody knows, any other questions we didn't necessarily get to, we're going to be sure that Michael and his team at Elkay sees an individual follow-up is there. We also have an opportunity to reach out directly through the information here. We're also going to share some information post-event via email. So please watch your email. Michael, I think there's a video in there too that you were talking about. We're going to make sure everybody gets a chance to view that as well. So with that, Michael, any parting thoughts, any other ideas that our audience can take with them as they look to the next steps when it comes to their filtration opportunities in their facilities.
Yep. No, I think, the way things are going, we just have to be more willing to change. And not one to really enjoy change, but when it comes for the greater good and the next generation, I think, that's really what it comes down to. And we were looking at the Michigan situation. They have what we call the gold standard of legislation requiring filter bottle fillers. Hopefully that's not going to be anything new in other states. It's going to be kind of like, why aren't we doing this today? And I think it's just going to take a lot of, buy-in from customers. And that's why I guess it goes back to, are people willing to change? Are people willing to, throw $1 down per student to filter drinking water? And it seems like a no-brainer, but it goes back to cost of ownership, ease of maintenance. And I think we've taken those barriers away to a certain extent. But in any case, there's easier solutions or, alternate solutions that we have. It doesn't stop with these new innovative solutions. These are more, suitable for new construction, certainly can be retrofitted or replaced for other units. But in any case, we do have more solutions to get you up to compliance if that filtered first legislation ever comes. So I will call out, we had our director of filtration join a webcast last year, kind of before the rumblings of filtered first came down. And his name's Scott Nielsen. He actually talked about how facilities teams can save time installing and maintaining bottle fillers, but he also digs into, he's the director of filtration. So he lives and breathes it just like we all do here, but he gives really good insights into filtration as well as the other solutions we have. So in any case, if you're not, on the market for something like this and on your screen, we have universal retrofit kits. We have, quick fit up, filter capable solutions that also have filter status indicators that, don't cost an arm and a leg necessarily. So always keep that in mind. If you're interested, I would definitely look at the webcasts that Scott put together on that topic. And it, sheds some light into the, the larger challenges in the industry.
Right. Thank you, Michael. And in addition to this webcast, as you referenced, Scott's webcast will also be available at facilitiesnet.com/webcast. Go check that out and you can see that information. And I know this audience here, we're all stewards of safe, clean, healthy buildings. And this filter first concept is really, just a major initiative and opportunity to maintain that commitment to safe, healthy, sustainable buildings. So this has been wonderful information. I want to thank you for bringing it to us today. And I want to thank Elkay as well for supporting this important industry update. We really appreciate it. Audience, you guys hit it out of the park with some awesome questions that just elevated the content shared across the entire event. Thank you for that. And remember, just check your email for any updates, download those slides from the related content module, get this information, bring it back to your teams and share it. So thank you everybody for your time today. Thank you again, Michael, for a great presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
And with that, we'll conclude today's webcast.